Hello everybody, welcome to this video. I will show you how to design an entity relationship diagram following crow's-foot notation. So the example is very simple. We have two entities, the student entity and the class entity. The student entity has the student ID and student name as attributes. The class entity has the class ID and class name attributes. We have two conditions that should be satisfied: that a student attends only one class and a class is attended by many students. So our target is to design entity relationship diagram following crow's-foot notation. We have plenty of tools in internet. I mean, we can search on web and find quite a lot of tools. Some of the tools are very sophisticated, and we can easily design quite large entity relationship diagrams, but for the scope of the program, and as soon as we don't focus on the database design mainly, I think that one good alternative solution is to use the MySQL Workbench for that. Of course, you're free to do an experiment with any design tool that you may find. So how can we use MySQL Workbench in order to design an entity relationship diagram design? And of course, at a later step, the benefit for MySQL Workbench is that we can translate that, we can transform the entity relationship diagram into a database design. So we can create a database from the ERD that we design, but let's keep it for the next videos. Now, we start the MySQL Workbench, and here from the left side, we click on this icon, and you can see that there is a model selection here. We click the plus sign, and we see this set of panels opening. So here in the first panel at the top, we can add a diagram. Let's do that. Double click, and we have a panel here, and we have a canvas that we can use in order to design our entity relationship diagram. Here, at the center of the page, we see a canvas. So it is the area that we can drag and drop the objects and we can design them. So let's see what we have to do. We have to create two entities and two attributes, one relationship. So from the left side here, we have a set of objects that we can drag and drop onto the canvas. So we need a table that is this one, and we need another table. So we click on that and we transfer that inside the canvas. So we have two table objects. So the crow's foot notation actually visualizes the entity as a kind of a table with separate attributes as extra lines or extra fields in the table. So how can we edit that in order to add the attributes? We double click that, and you see that we have this. Let's make it a bit more visible. Okay, so right now we are editing the table 1. So we can rename that, and we can set the students as a name. And here we can define columns. So the two columns that we're looking for are the student ID and the student name. So we click here to edit and write student ID for the first one. We keep it as a data type. Well, it's not really necessary to focus on that, but we can imagine that the student ID could be a number. And you see that a key here is placed, which means that's a primary key, but it's something that we will spend time later. So let's write here the student name, press enter. Let's leave it with a default value. So you see that we have generated the design for the students table, adding two attributes. Well, you see that it looks like more than a table and less than a kind of a visual, design, but that's a crow's foot notation. Now let's more or less we're fine with that. We're happy with the first table. Let's close that and let's edit the second table. Rename that to class. Sorry for that. And let's add the two attributes, class ID for the first one and class name for the second one. Press enter, so you see that we have generated the second table as well. No, those two tables depict the two entities. Okay, what is missing here is the relationship between those two. So how can we add them? We know that from the conditions that we need a relationship one-to-many. One student attends one class, a class can be attended by many students. So the relationship is one-to-many. So from the left side here, we have all those options according to Crowsfoot notation. So we can pick the one that is relevant to our case. So we have the one-to-many. So we click on that, and then you see that we can connect the two tables. So we need to figure out what is the direction here, one-to-many or many-to-one. So if we click on the students first and the class next, we see that the relationship that is built is one here to many. So one class can be attended by many students. So that's the Crowsfoot here. And on the other side, one student can attend only one class. Okay, so we can also edit this, and we can, if we want, we can define something more specific, for example, for the relationship, but for the diagram itself, more or less, we're fine. We don't need to add something more. Even if it is not a pure design and it is closer to database design, it is enough for the purposes of the program and the exercises. So let's say that this is pretty fine and we want to use that in our document. So how can we export that? Pretty easily, we can select either the entire diagram or part of that and press the file, export as a PNG or PDF. So I think that the PNG is enough. So we can define here, for example, a name, one, PNG. Let's place that on desktop or at the documents. Okay, save that. And let's have a look on how it looks like. And you see that this is our diagram. Now, this is an entity relationship diagram following Crowsfoot notation. Of course, as I said, we can see variations of that, and we can easily modify that from the model menu here, where we can change either the relationship notation from Crowsfoot, as you can see, it's the default here selection, to a classic or UML. It's not really necessary. Or we can change the way that we see the tables. We can switch that to a classic, for example. So you see that it's more close to a classic view, but each one of those approaches is more or less the same. Okay, so let's remain on the default. So this is the way to design an entity relationship diagram using MySQL workbench in Crowsfoot notation. And as I said, this is something that is really valuable. And the reason is that we can use the reverse engineer or the forward engineer, those two features of MySQL workbench, in order to generate database, or from a database to generate the entity relationship. So this is one of the benefits that we have when we use this tool. I hope you enjoyed the video. Thank you very much, and see you in the next video.